life had taken so much out of me that my faith was non-existent. In fact, I don't really understand what faith was. I dropped to my knees and I just said, well, this is it then. I'm finished. I think why the world is in such a mess is because they've lost sight of God. Sometimes I hear when I think, are you sure about that? Go and speak to this person, in the street or something. My name is Arthur Lowe. Racing forward, really, I came on the Camino in 2006. I was very emotionally damaged, physically quite fit, but I felt that life was almost over. Then I'd lost my family, my home. I'd lost my job, had finished, so nothing was the same in my life. And I had been depressed really for about 3 years. And then I suddenly remembered about this Camino that I'd heard. So I started at St. John, and as soon as I started, it was different. I saw colours, I loved people again. I remember people's names I may have had a coffee with them for 10 minutes and then saw them 2 weeks later and remember their names. Another uncanny thing was happening that sort of men, when they got their sticks, well, when you're a young boy, you seem to take everything. Sometimes, you knock things about, and I had such a deep respect for the environment. All I could do was marvel. There's no way I was going to knock a nettle head off, so something changed. It was a huge 6 weeks, and I painted all along the way. When I got back to England, I sat in my little apartment, safe and sound, and felt it wasn't enough anymore. So I came back in the autumn. I found this place as a ruin and bought it and sold my little apartment in England and started work the following year. I believe very much in Jesus. I was spectacularly converted when I was 35 as a police officer, and I felt faith and belief is different because I could never not believe, but faith is something that you use, and life had taken so much out of me that my faith was non-existent. In fact, I don't really understand what faith was until I came here, and until I was asked to, really by Jesus, to use faith. And so I understand now that this place, whilst I was restoring this place, Jesus was actually restoring me. And this place is not finished. It never will be, and nor will I. But that's the beauty of Jesus, because he accepts us as we are. I don't have to strive. I don't have to make myself purer or better in any way, because there's nothing I can do to get his grace. It's free, and all I need to do is believe, and thankfully I was given that. So over the years, I think I have gained more understanding, but I realise how much more there is needed too. But I'm very grateful. I like to think that I would set my sights above now in higher realms rather than earthly realms, particularly at my age. I'm going through several different illnesses, all of which he's been with me in. I had cancer about 14 years ago, and I remember coming in here when I was diagnosed. I dropped to my knees and I just said, well, this is it then. I'm finished. And I distinctly heard him say after me, I am going to live. I was absolutely stunned, because there was no way that I could have said that. I'd written myself off, I had a serious cancer, and yet I said those words out loud, and I stood up from here a different man. And I'm still here today, so I've been very blessed for those extra years. When I was a new Christian, I was in a difficult marriage. I was in a difficult job. My life was difficult for me, the person I am. And I remember going into a service in Switzerland saying to him as a new Christian, all I want to do is paint for you. And I had an immediate response. You don't always get that, but I had an immediate response, and it said, I will give you the desires of your heart. And 25 years later, I have that. I am fulfilled. And I understand when I meet people that not everyone does get that in their life. So I'm very, very grateful to Jesus that he's in my life, and he is the rock of my life, yeah.
Those who don't understand, how can we hear him talking to us?
I think in the silence, sometimes the talking is, the words are very clear, and sometimes we seek. And it's very difficult for me to explain, but nevertheless, the guidance is extremely clear to me in sometimes in really minute details. Like, I want you to go upstairs, and up here. When I'm down there and there's nobody here, and I'll go up and somebody will come in, hello, and they want prayer. It's obvious they have a divine appointment to come in here and to receive prayer. Just from a prompt, go upstairs. And there are many, many that we receive. But I can't tell you, I hear a voice, but I definitely get, prompts of guidance and instruction, and I try to follow. Sometimes I hear when I think, are you sure about that? Go and speak to this person, in the street or something. And very often when I'm obedient, I go, and that's the very thing the person wants, spectacular. And you come away with more blessed assurance, by using that faith. You are affirming, not just to him, but to you, who you believe. So, yeah.
So what can people do to have a good life?
I think why the world is in such a mess is because they've lost sight of God. He cared for us by giving us, some conditions, some guides to live. And we seem to have rejected all of those, and we've gone off on our own steam, which is, money and pleasures, and we've just lost sight of his caring. They weren't rules as such; they were guidance for our protection. And that's what I believe, is the world is in such a mess. The integrity of people in power is not very good.
But all these bad things, are they not just a lesson for us as well?
Certainly, if you think that they're a lesson to me is that what I witness in the world is not what I want. This is not what I want. It's not the way I want to live. And sometimes I'm incredulous as to the behavior of some human beings in power, particularly. But he will leave us to our own devices. He gave us free will. So, and it's up to me to be a representation of who I believe in any way I can. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you.